afternoon, ladies. Welcome to the Luce Center's annual CPAC College Women's Luncheon. My name is Kimberly Begg. I am the president of the Luce Center. We are an all-women organization that specializes in the conservative education and mentorship of young women. I have been involved, we can applaud to that. I I have been involved with this wonderful organization since I was a student at Rutgers University in the 1990s. I came down to Washington, D.C. for a Luce Center event with two of my girlfriends on campus, and what I experienced at the event was truly life-changing. It was my first meaningful experience with female camaraderie of my entire life. I come from a small family. It was just my brother and me. I didn't have any girl cousins. I was never in a sorority. But suddenly I found myself at this event in Washington, D.C. with all of these amazing conservative college women from across the country. And we had this opportunity to sit together and to talk about what it was like to be a young woman on our very liberal college campuses. That experience very much informs the work that we do today at the Luce Center. Ladies, there is no better time to become involved with our work here. The left likes to gloat that young women have been shifting leftward for decades, and that is true to some extent. 40% of today's young women identify as liberal. You probably know that 60% of young women voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. You may also know that when you break it down to young, single, college-educated women, that figure actually goes up to 70% of those women who voted for Kamala Harris. But those figures do not tell the full story. A poll we recently conducted at the Luce Center of 800 18 to 24-year-old women showed that despite this liberal label, young women actually have naturally conservative instincts, especially related to marriage, motherhood, finances, and crime. But our study showed that they often hide those conservative instincts to avoid conflict. So, at the Luce Center, we give young women the support they need to embrace their naturally conservative beliefs and become strong conservative leaders. Our young women tell us that our programs are life-changing. I want to encourage all of you to get involved with as much as you can at the Luce Center. Some of our most popular programs include our National Student Summits. We will be in Washington, D.C. in July this year, and Scottsdale, Arizona in October. Our firearms training. In the next few weeks, we are going to be at fire ranges at Grand Canyon University. Woohoo! And also Clemson University. And I want to encourage all college women to apply for our internship program. I've been involved with the conservative movement my entire adult career, my entire adult lifetime. And I will tell you that there is no experience like our internship for college women. It is a 10-week program. We have seminars and trainings every week. We teach the young women about constitutional law. We do media training with our young women. We do firearms training. We do etiquette training with our young women. We take them to Washington, D.C. We have cultural experiences together. We attend Young America's Foundation's National Conservative Student Conference together. It is an absolutely wonderful experience. I encourage you all to apply. The application deadline is March 31st, and at the conclusion of our program, my colleague Lauren will be coming up here and talking to you a little bit about that as well. And Lauren is around here, and feel free to ask her if you have any questions. But now on to our program. I will be inviting two young women up to the podium to say the prayer and to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to welcome Roan Nash. She's a high school student who was just accepted to West Point. And I would like to invite Sarah Michelle Eversole. She is a student at Hillsdale College. So Roan and Sarah Michelle, please join me up here at the podium.
If you could please rise for the prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this opportunity we all have to gather here today and to be in fellowship with so many inspiring people. I pray that you will give us receptive hearts and minds as we listen to Mrs. Hemingway speak, and that you will use her words to inspire each of us to have courage and boldness when we speak the truth. I pray that your light will shine through all of these young women as you lead them on your path in their lives. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to welcome Sarah Michelle to the stage to introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Michelle Eversole, and I am a junior at Hillsdale College. It is my pleasure to be introducing Mrs. Mollie Ziegler Hemingway. She is the editor-in-chief of the Federalist, a senior journalism fellow at Hillsdale College, and a Fox News contributor. She is the co-author of national bestseller Justice on Trial, The Kavanaugh Confirmation, and the Future of the Supreme Court, and author of the bestseller Rigged, How the Media, Big Tech, and Democrats Seized Our Elections. Mrs. Hemingway is a 2021 recipient of the Bradley Prize, awarded for extraordinary contributions to American scholarship and debate. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Hemingway.
One, two, three, yeah!
Sorry, I love the music there. Well, it's wonderful to be here with you, and I always love getting to attend CPAC and seeing people from all over the country, and particularly young women, so I'm very happy to be here today. And I mostly want us to actually have a conversation, so get your questions ready. But before we have questions, I just want to speak at you for a little while from my old lady posture of all my wisdom that I have. And I know there are some men here, and that's okay. One of them's my husband, and he's safe. But we're in a, being a woman is a special and unique thing, and there is so much discussion going on about it right now. And I was thinking about a couple years ago. Did you guys see the Barbie movie? You probably did. And I did not hate it or love it as much as other people did. I thought it was fine and had some good points. But there was a speech at the end of the movie, or toward the end, where America Ferrara talks about how awful it is to be a woman. Do you remember that? So I just want to read you a portion of it. She says, "It is literally impossible to be a woman. You are so beautiful and so," oh no, wait, is that right? Is that the beginning? Yeah. "You're so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like we have to always be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. You have to be thin, but not too thin, and you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people." And it goes on and on and on. And I was watching that with my daughters, who were young, who were teenagers at the time. And it made me sad because I love being a woman. I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm so thankful. I think men are great too, but I am so thankful that God made me a woman. And my husband and I have been raising our daughters to be very happy about being women. And until they saw this speech, I don't think they had these thoughts that it's so awful and challenging to be a woman. And so I didn't love it. But I also have thought about this speech and realized she's not really describing how tough it is to be a woman. She's describing how tough it is to be a feminist. And I think there's truth in that. I think it is kind of difficult to be a feminist, where you have to, where your value is based on what your career is, and also you have to be a perfect mother, and you have to, not be complaining, and all these kinds of things. There's this idea about being a woman that feminism pushes out that is different than what we have as conservative women. And I think it's important when you're young to recognize the difference between what feminists say being a woman is and what we say being a woman is, and to be very happy that you don't have to follow that general way of being. There's something related, it's kind of a high-level concept that people have talked about recently called the longhouse, which is this idea that as our society has changed over the years and as women have gotten more involved in leadership positions, that the way that we communicate and order things is more done to appease women. So since women are more collaborative and men are more like go out and hunt and kill that thing, we end up having all these organizations that are more friendly to female modes of communication. And a lot of men have complained about this, the longhouse, and how it has been bad for men. But I also think it's been kind of bad for women, too, in that confusion about the very real differences that men and women have, and a denial of those differences, ends up not just making women have to do a lot of things that men used to do, but it also makes the men less appealing to women in many ways. And so it's just kind of worth thinking about whether the way we order things is good. I want to read another thing, actually. I actually generally like Megyn Kelly, but I'm going to read a tweet from hers that I did not love from a couple days ago. She said, "Ladies, it is possible to make your own money, have your own career, pay for your own swanky New York City apartment, and find a man who loves you, wants to have and raise kids with you, and wants to be with you and only you. The only thing stopping you, your decision to settle for less." There's truth in this, right? That women should want and live in a way that requires them to be treated well by the men in their lives. But I didn't love the whole idea that unless you're buying a swanky New York City apartment, that you're settling for less. It's again this very materialistic idea about what success as a woman means, and I think it leads to unhealthy careerism. And I have a career and I'm very happy with my career, but it leads to an unhealthy obsession with careers that I would encourage our younger ladies to just be wary of. I love my jobs career. I love what I get to do. I love being editor-in-chief at the Federalist, where we every single day go to war against the left and all the bad ideas that are out there. And I love teaching at Hillsdale, and I love being on Fox News. And still, if I think about the happiness in my life, 99% of it comes from my marriage and my children and my life with them. And it's not even close. I mean, and I really do love what I do career-wise. And so we put so much emphasis into what we're going to do career-wise, and I don't think we put enough emphasis into picking good husbands who are going to be good fathers and raising families together and all those things that actually lead to a lot of happiness and success. So all of that was to say, I think it's important to focus on a work-life balance, and in order to have a good work-life balance, you have to put some thought into what your priorities are. And life is challenging, and things get difficult, and things get messed up, and all sorts of trauma and trouble can happen. But if you order your life where you put God first, and you think about that being the organizing principle, for instance, when you're scheduling your week, you make sure, no matter what, that you're at church on Sunday, and that you're reading scripture, and that you are maintaining and growing in faith. That making that first, making your family right after that second, where you are either as a daughter or a wife or a mother or whatever your different vocations are, that you are nurturing and caring about those relationships. And then after that comes the larger community, of which job and career is a big part of it, but they do not dominate your life like your relationship with God and your relationship with your family should. It's very different from what the world will tell you, which is to be obsessively focused on getting that corner apartment or corner office and your swanky New York City apartment, and you can leave all the other concerns till later. I don't think that's a really good idea, and I think just acknowledging it as a young person is good. I remember when I was in college, in my labor and economics class, our very feminist professor had asked the women to talk about what they wanted to do in life. And I had said something like, well, I want to be a wife and a mother, so I want to pick a career that works well with being a wife and mother. She was apoplectic with rage over this. And I didn't even end up getting married until my 30s. I mean, I was trying earlier. This guy took a while just kidding. No, it just took us a while to get married. And it might not have happened. And it might not have happened, and so you don't want to live your whole life as if that's the only thing that you can do. Being a woman, and maybe some people aren't interested in marriage, and that's fine. But regardless, family is important. Being an aunt or a niece or a cousin or just a friend to the people that you go to church with, that's all important too. And so there's that. Okay, I have much more to say, and I can just talk at you, but I would love if we could just have some questions now. Yes, ma'am.
So something about me is that I choose to wait until marriage, and I'm 20 years old, and I decided that all the way back when I was 18 when I was listening to various commentaries and doing some research on it too, and it only made sense to me. And I also know that in college it's full of vices. It's a very viceful culture to remain in, and plenty of boys are not going to want to follow that. I have definitely met several, but I am worried because I would say that the conservative media constantly encourages and even pushes women to marry young or to find someone young. But what if I find that somebody later too? Is there really such thing as that biological clock that we've always been told?
It's such a great question, a question about the biological clock and how to deal with that. So one of my side vocations is I like to do matchmaking, and I have been moderately successful with it, more than a dozen marriages that I've put together, yes. And I do it because I love being married. I managed to marry a wonderful man, and we have a very happy life together, and I want other people to have it. But I've always thought the worst thing in the world would be to marry the wrong person. That makes it very difficult, and I've had many friends who've suffered through problems that can happen when you don't marry wisely. And so marrying young, though, does have a purpose. I mean, there's a reason why, and this is to get into the Barbie speech, there are all these challenges here. When you're young is when you're most biologically capable of having children, and also the number of children that you want to have. So I think a lot of times when you're younger, you think, yeah, I probably want kids, so if I can have one or two, that would be great. And then once you have them, you realize you love having them and you want many, many more. And so the longer you wait, the more difficult it is to have children, which leads to then all sorts of artificial interventions or other things that just make the beauty of the gift of life a more traumatic experience than it should be, or that also raises moral questions. I think a little bit of pressure about getting married young is not bad, because it's terrifying to to do it. And if we didn't feel the pressure or the urge, then we might never do it. But that you should not let that dominate to the point that you make a bad decision about who you're with. And also, like I said, some people don't get married. You might want a marriage, and it might not be something that God has in store for you. And so having a life that is not dependent on that too is a good way to not be so reliant on needing it to happen at a certain point in time. But there are plenty of people who are making decisions like you are and are very fulfilled by them, and plenty of people who are not making decisions like you are and have it lead to ruin. So you should feel very convinced about the way you're doing it.
Thank you.
In the back.
Yes, for those of you with questions, if you would please line up this way for us.
Okay.
We'll have you ask your questions here, please.
Actually, I'm just going to make one little request. If we could just have a few of our college women at the beginning of the line to give them a little bit of space and give them a little bit of priority for questions.
And
Thank you.
we can talk about anything, even though I want to talk about personal stuff and work-life balance. If you have other questions or career questions, that's fine too.
Sorry, I'm a little short, so this is hard to do. But as someone who's about to graduate college looking to be a mother, what is the best advice you can give to a young mom?
Oh, I don't know.
I know it's like a loaded question, but.
Well, I will just say that being a mother is a great joy, and it's also a tremendous amount of work. My sister gave me really good advice to just acknowledge that it's a lot of work so that you're not resisting it so much or angry about it. But they're so fun and wonderful. It's just great. One thing I did, I had all these friends who got married before I did and had kids before I did, and so I was kind of learning from them. And they would always talk about how quickly everything went. And I just resolved when I had our oldest daughter that I'd try to appreciate every day. I am going to cry right now because she's headed off to college next year, sorry. And I am so glad I did that. Like, I'm so glad that I really made an intentional, like, loving every age, because now she's, leaving. And she's such a sweet, wonderful girl, and probably headed to Hillsdale, by the way, so. But yeah, just appreciate every moment. Also, I'll just keep going, because there's nobody in line, so I'm just going to keep talking until someone else shows up online. That you're required to take care of your child, but you have a ton of liberty about how you do it. So sometimes moms put a lot of pressure on each other, and they'll be like trying to be perfect about how you do things, or they get really focused on how you have to do it this way or you have to do it that way. You do have to raise disciplined children, but how you discipline, assuming you do it properly, is up to you. You have to feed your children, but how you do it is up to you. Some people are amazing chefs, and some people can barely throw a meal together. As long as your kids are fed, that's your job, and you've done it well, and you can kind of be liberated to do it your own way.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi, okay. I'm a second semester college student, and I feel like there's a lot of pressure with trying to figure out what you want to do, and like everybody's like, you should be able to, like I'm studying intelligence analysis, and we had to say what our future plans are, like if we want to go to the DOD, if we want to work for the military, or OD&I. And I just like there's a lot of pressure with that. So what advice do you have to someone who doesn't really know what she wants to do yet?
It is, again, such a good question, and it is amazing that we ask people when they're as young as you are, with as little experience as you have, to kind of decide what you're doing for the rest of your life, or so it seems when you're in your spot. But the truth is, someone told me this, and I really appreciated it, that starting your career is like being at the very base of a pyramid, and it's a big pyramid, and you can move in any number of areas, and you can kind of enter on whichever side. And as you advance in your career, your options narrow, but you kind of are also figuring out more about what you want to do. And the main takeaway I took, the thing I took from that was that don't freak out so much about your first job selection, because you might go into it and hate it. You might go into, you might be like, okay, I'm going into DNI, or, I'm going to do this particular type of intelligence analysis. And you decide that you love the organization you're at, that you love exactly what you're doing, and you just start building your way up the pyramid. You might say, oh, wow, this is totally different than I thought it would be. I would like to go over here to this kind of different career track. And when you're young, you have so much opportunity to do that, and it's great. So, make a good decision, but don't agonize over it, because wherever you go, the sad truth is that all jobs are somewhat the same and can be a bit, less than awesome when you start, so.
How do you think a relationship with God influences your life choices?
Do you mean in general?
In general, yeah.
Okay, so I was actually just thinking about this with relation to the previous question, and also to the Barbie speech and the Megyn Kelly thing. There are all these things that people say about how you have to figure out what's really fulfilling for you, and you need to take care of yourself and self-care and all this way of speaking that's very narcissistic, I think, about how women should be. And for me as a Christian, I think when you have when you know that you're a child of God and you want to serve him, you think about the best way to serve him, and the best way to serve him is by serving your neighbor. And so thinking vocationally less about what do I want to do, and more about what do I do that helps other people the most. it can help clarify what you do in life and some of the decisions you make, and it just takes it a little bit away from yourself and your own selfish needs and more about serving others. And ultimately, serving others is much more satisfying. And everybody has different gifts, but figuring out what your gifts are and how people can benefit from them is a really good aspect of that relationship with God.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to know, how did you decide what you were going to do with your career?
Oh, I wish I had like this is a good question. I thought about just saying this today, and it's kind of convoluted, but I'll just say, I thought I wanted to be an economist. I was so convinced that I wanted to be an economist from the time I was in high school. I loved economics. I went to college, I studied economics. I never changed my major. I knew I wanted to do it. I moved out to DC to start graduate school out here, studying economics, at which point I realized I hated economics. And I was kind of lost for a little while. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was working for a nonprofit and having fun. Met my husband, met some other people who are here as part of that. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I just kept working for places that, I just kept working while I was trying to figure it out. And then I got fired. And that's something that people in the federal government are learning can happen to people. And it was weird for me because I'm a hard worker and I'm used to people being very happy with what I do. And I got fired and I was broke and I didn't want to keep doing the line of work that I'd been doing. And I knew some people who were reporters who loved what they did. And I had never even considered it because they all seemed to be really poor. But when you have no money because you've just been fired, being poor is a less bad option than being completely on the street. And so I decided I would try to be a reporter. And I did get a job and wrote something and was immediately convinced that it was exactly what I wanted to do. And I should have known it when I was younger. I was yearbook editor at my high school. I started a school newspaper in elementary school. I was on the school newspaper in junior high. I really should have known that this is what I wanted to do, but it took me a really long time to figure it out. And yeah, and I did it. And also, back to what I was saying, I think other people really liked that work that I was doing. They really appreciated what I was writing about and how I was writing about it. And so it confirmed for me that it was the right thing to do. And back to what I was saying about telling my college professor that I wanted a career that worked well with being a wife and a mother, it was perfect for that because in journalism, you can take a break. And I did. I quit my job when I had my oldest kid, and I didn't go back until the youngest was in school, and nobody even noticed. So it worked. It just hit all the spots. But that's a very specific to me story, but it just worked that way.
Thank you.
Hi. I was wondering if you had any advice for how to keep conservative values when you're going to a college that isn't exactly conservative?
Yes. Sorry, it's not just college. It'll be when you get out of college too. You have to think about all of this stuff. It freaks me out how people I know who I knew when they were younger were conservative and then it all kind of flits away somehow. It is disturbing. I think personally you need to make sure when you go to college that you find a church home as your first order of business. College is tough, and it's 4 years. It's not just 4 years where everything you believe is being challenged, usually. It's also the first time in your life that you're away from your family and your entire system of support. And so if you don't have a good church home, you're basically asking for it to be much more difficult than it needs to be. And you should just have a church home at all points. So when you leave college and you go get your first job in some city you've never lived in before, find your church home right away. And also it provides, my husband and I talked about this because we're both reporters, and everybody kind of lost their minds during the first Trump administration here in town. And we just felt like it was very calm. And we think it had to do with the fact that mostly our life is built around our church and our relationships with people at church. And so while everybody has made politics their religion and and they get really worked up about it. That was just never the thing that drove us, and so we didn't get as crazy about it. But I don't know exactly what the answer is other than don't squish out. There's an amazing amount of pressure to do so, and it makes you lame to squish out. So don't. And the number one compliment I get for what I do on TV or what I write is people appreciating that I have not stopped having the same values that I had when I was your age, because they've seen so many people do it. But build good support systems, keep studying, and practice being courageous. So little acts of courage teach you to be more courageous. So speaking up when it makes you a little nervous in class about what you believe teaches you how to do a better job with it the next time, and then pretty soon you're good at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, first I just want to say thank you so much for hosting this lunch. It's amazing to see so many amazing conservative women. I am currently getting my master's in education, but I've been working in public high school for the past 3 years. And the one thing that I see in my girls, my students, is their majority in denying their femininity. And for example, one of the examples is they're using they, them pronouns, and it just kind of escalates from there. So my question is, does the Center for Conservative Women have an outreach program for young women in this, for the younger generations?
Well, it's a great question, and I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer. Can we get like an official answer on what is available for, you're saying for high school students?
Or maybe just advice on.
Sorry, but Kimberly, do you have anything about what's available to help high school or middle school girls?
Well, I highly recommend you get in touch with our staff here and become involved with the Luce Center programs. Our internship is really first rate. In fact, what often happens is young women will come to our internship and then they're so inspired that they go back to their college campus, they will host a campus lecture with one of our wonderful speakers, and then they often end up bringing groups of other young women to our national student summits. And this is a really great way for our young women to tap into a national network of conservative women. And we're actually building our alumni program right now. And we're going to be putting together a mentorship program so young women will have contacts in different professional fields, in different personal areas that they might want to develop. So in short, yeah, get in touch with us and get involved.
And I do think the role that educators such as yourself play in helping young women during this very difficult phase of life, we all remember how no matter what, those years, middle school years, are some of the most difficult. And when you're really coming into your knowledge of what it means to be a woman, and with so many confusing messages in our culture, it's in a lot of pressure. The way to be different and cool is to adopt some of the radical gender ideology. And it's not just like a hard time for you in your life, it's also a hard time for the young men that you're with too. So it's just a perfect storm of creating incentives for people to embrace radical gender ideology. But that's why I think it's important that women celebrate being women. We joke at the Federalist, so there's this conservative or traditionally conservative publication called National Review, which had its motto, standing athwart history, saying stop, or something. So the idea was, well, as everything marches toward the left, we'll say don't do that. But we always joked at the Federalist that our motto was standing athwart history, saying men and women are different. Because we're different, and it's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing, and we should celebrate it and make it something that women are excited about. And so at the same time that they're learning about all the challenges with being a woman, they also see about all the benefits and beauties surrounding it as well.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Yes, sorry.
Hi, my name is Stacy. I want to say thank you very much for your message. I want to reiterate what you said. It's not just for the younger kids, it's for women like myself too, because I used to run the Drug Enforcement Administration in Montana. I have a 16-and-a-half-year-old, and I put my job first I eat and lived my job. And so what you're saying is spot on, is that don't live your job, live your family, have your faith-based church to support you. And so I applaud your message of what you're saying here to these young ladies. Thank you.
Yeah, it's everybody. I mean, we all face these challenges about how to balance it. Thank you very much.